The notification sound on my phone cut through the silence of my apartment like a knife. Dad's voicemail. "Don't bother coming tomorrow, Amaya. We're cutting ties with you." His voice was cold final. No explanation, no goodbye. Just like that, 28 years of being the dutiful daughter meant nothing. I stared at my phone for exactly 10 seconds, then typed back one word, "Understood." But what they didn't know was that I had already made my decision. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how one simple text message brought down an entire family's dreams. Now, let me take you back to where this all started, because sometimes being the good child means you're really just being used. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I was always the responsible one. While my older brother Marcus spent his days gaming in the basement and jumping from one failed venture to another, I was building my career at a respected marketing firm. Our parents, David and Sharon, had this way of making excuses for Marcus that I never understood. "He's creative," Mom would say when he dropped out of college for the third time. "He just needs to find his path." Dad would add when Marcus borrowed money, he never paid back. I told myself it didn't matter. I had my own life, my own success. My credit score was 752, I had a steady income, and I had just moved into my own apartment downtown. I thought I had proven myself worthy of respect, but family dynamics run deeper than achievements. Everything changed when Dad came to me with his dream. He wanted to open a family restaurant called Sherman's Kitchen, named after our late grandfather. The vision was beautiful, a cozy place serving comfort food somewhere the family could work together and build something lasting. The loan amount was $180,000, a significant sum that would cover equipment renovation and 6 months of operating expenses. Amaya's sweetheart, Dad said, sitting across from me at my kitchen table with a folder full of bank documents. "We need a co-signer for the loan. Your credit and income make you perfect for this." His eyes lit up as he described the restaurant, the family legacy we could create together. For the first time in years, I felt truly needed by my family. The bank meeting went smoothly. My loan officer, Mrs. Patterson, walked us through every document with professional courtesy. "With Amaya as co-signer, this loan is practically guaranteed," she explained to Dad. "Her financial profile is exactly what we look for in business partnerships." I signed my name on line after line, each signature feeling like a step toward finally earning my place in the family. Dad hugged me outside the bank that day. "You're making this dream possible, honey. I won't forget this." For once, I felt like the favored child, the one who mattered. Marcus wasn't even mentioned during the entire process. It seemed like finally my reliability was being valued over his empty promises. The first red flag appeared 2 weeks after the loan approval. I had started a group chat with Mom, Dad, and Marcus to discuss restaurant plans, sharing articles about successful family businesses and menu ideas I had researched. Suddenly, I noticed Marcus had created a separate chat called Real Family Planning. That didn't include me. When I asked Mom about it, she brushed it off. "Oh, that's just for day-to-day operational stuff. You're busy with your real job." That phrase stung more than it should have. Your real job implied that the restaurant was somehow less real for me, even though my signature was on every loan document. I started noticing other small exclusions. Marcus would reference conversations I wasn't part of, decisions that had apparently been made without my input. When I asked to see the floor plans they were discussing, Dad said Marcus had some really creative ideas, and they wanted to let him run with it for now. The exclusion became more systematic. Family dinners turned into business meetings where I sat silent while Marcus presented ideas he had clearly copied from restaurant websites. Mom and Dad hung on his every word, nodding enthusiastically at suggestions that made little financial sense. When I tried to point out budget concerns or logistical problems, I was met with polite dismissal. "Let's stay positive," Mom would say. "Marcus understands the vision better." Marcus had somehow transformed from the family disappointment into the golden child overnight. He started calling himself the operations manager in conversations with friends, despite never having managed anything more complex than a video game guild. Meanwhile, I was only contacted when they needed additional signatures for permits or insurance documents. I was becoming the silent financial partner in what was supposed to be our family dream. The breaking point came during what Dad called a final planning meeting at my parents' house. I arrived expecting to discuss my role in the restaurant, maybe even plan a grand opening celebration. Instead, I walked into an intervention designed to minimize my involvement. Marcus had prepared a presentation complete with printed charts and a slideshow on Dad's laptop. He outlined his comprehensive business strategy, which I immediately recognized as a template he had downloaded from a restaurant consulting website. He had barely changed the placeholder text. Our target demographic, he read confidently, consists of families and young professionals seeking authentic dining experiences. The words were generic, meaningless, but Mom and Dad nodded as if he were revealing profound business insights. When Marcus finished his presentation, Dad clapped slowly. "This is exactly the kind of visionary thinking we need," he announced. "Marcus, I want you to take the lead on all operational decisions moving forward." Mom beamed at her oldest son. "I always knew you had it in you, honey. I felt invisible sitting there, but I tried to contribute constructively." "This is a good start," I said carefully. "But we need to talk about some specific numbers. The food cost percentages don't match our local market, and the staffing plan seems overly ambitious for our budget." I had done actual research, spent hours analyzing successful restaurants in Portland's competitive market. Marcus's face darkened immediately. "This is exactly the kind of negative thinking that kills businesses," he snapped. "You can't just focus on problems all the time." Dad nodded in agreement. "Marcus is right, Amaya. We need optimism and creativity, not constant criticism." "I'm not being critical," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm trying to make sure we don't fail in the first 6 months. 60% of restaurants close within 3 years, and most of those failures are due to poor financial planning." I pulled out my own research pages of market analysis and realistic projections I had compiled. "See, this is what I mean," Marcus said, gesturing dismissively at my documents. "You're already planning for failure. Maybe you should step back and let people who actually believe in this vision handle the details." The room fell silent except for the ticking of Mom's antique clock. "Marcus has been thinking about this restaurant concept for months," Mom said finally. "He understands the creative side better than anyone." Dad nodded. "Sometimes too much analysis can paralyze a project. We need to trust Marcus's instincts here." I stared at my family, realizing that my months of research, my financial backing, my careful planning meant nothing compared to Marcus's sudden enthusiasm. "So what exactly is my role supposed to be?" I asked directly. "Well, you're the financial partner, obviously," Dad said, as if that explained everything. "Marcus will handle day-to-day operations, and you can focus on your marketing career. Everyone plays to their strengths." The dismissal was complete. I gathered my research, stood up, and walked out without another word. Behind me, I heard Marcus say, "She'll come around. She always does." The casual confidence in his voice made my stomach turn. That night, unable to sleep, I was scrolling through social media when I accidentally clicked on a notification from the Real Family Planning group chat. My heart stopped as I read the messages from 3 days earlier. "We need Amaya's signature for the loan, but once the restaurant is established, we can restructure everything," Dad had written. Mom had replied, "Marcus will be the real partner. Amaya is just providing the financial backing we need to get started." The most devastating message came from Marcus. "Once we're profitable, we can buy out Amaya's stake for whatever the initial investment was. She gets her money back, and I get full control. Win-win." Dad had responded with a thumbs-up emoji. I read those messages 5 times before the reality sank in completely. I was not a family member building a shared dream. I was a bank providing capital for Marcus's restaurant while being systematically excluded from any real partnership. They had planned my eventual removal from day one. The next morning, I tried one last time to address this directly with my parents. I sat them down in their living room and showed them the messages I'd seen. "This makes me feel like I'm being used," I explained calmly. "If Marcus is meant to be the sole owner eventually, then we need to structure this as a loan from me to him, not a family partnership." Dad's response was immediate and harsh. "You're being paranoid, Amaya. Those messages were just us thinking out loud about possibilities. You're taking everything the wrong way." Mom joined in. "Marcus has been dreaming about this restaurant since he was little. Can't you just be supportive of your brother for once?" "I've been supportive," I said. "I co-signed a $180,000 loan. I've spent weeks researching and planning. But I'm being treated like an outsider in my own investment." "Maybe if you were more positive about Marcus's ideas, instead of constantly questioning everything, you would feel more included," Dad replied. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost doubted my own perceptions for a moment. The final straw came when I overheard Marcus on the phone with his girlfriend bragging about his family restaurant and promising her a management position once it opened. There was no mention of my financial contribution, no acknowledgement that the restaurant existed only because of my creditworthiness. To him, I had already been erased from the narrative. The morning of what was supposed to be the restaurant's soft opening, I called Dad's phone to confirm what time I should arrive. I wanted to support the family despite everything to try once more to find my place in this venture I had made possible. The call went straight to voicemail, which seemed odd since Dad usually answered immediately when I called. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. Dad's voice was cold and formal, like he was reading from a script. Amaya, don't bother coming tomorrow. We're cutting ties with you effective immediately. Marcus told us about your threats to sabotage the business if you didn't get your way. We can't have that kind of negative energy around our opening day. This is our final decision. I played the message 3 times, each word hitting like a physical blow. Threats to sabotage the business. I had never said anything remotely like that. The accusation was so outrageous, so completely fabricated, that I realized Marcus had been planning this final move for weeks. He had found a way to remove me entirely while making me the villain in the story. My hands were shaking as I typed my response, but my message was simple and clean. Understood. No drama, no argument, no desperate plea for reconsideration. Just acknowledgement that I had received their message clearly. What they didn't know was that I had already decided what to do next. Monday morning, I walked into First National Bank at exactly 9 a.m. Mrs. Patterson, my loan officer, greeted me with professional warmth. Amaya, good to see you. How can I help you today? I need to discuss my co-signer status on the Sherman's Kitchen loan, I said calmly. I'd like to understand my options for removing myself from the agreement. Mrs. Patterson pulled up the loan file on her computer, her expression growing serious as she reviewed the details. Well, since the final funding hasn't been released yet, you do have the right to withdraw as co-signer. However, this would require the primary borrowers to requalify for the loan based solely on their financial profiles. What would that requalification process involve? I asked. The bank would need to verify that David and Marcus Sherman can qualify for the $180,000 loan without your income and credit backing, she explained. Given that the original application was primarily approved based on your financial strength, they would need to demonstrate alternative means of qualification. I knew exactly what Marcus's credit score looked like from years of watching him struggle with basic financial responsibilities. What happens if they can't requalify? Then the loan would be denied and any pending funding would be frozen. Mrs. Patterson said, the restaurant wouldn't be able to access the approved capital. I took a deep breath. I'd like to formally request removal of my name from this loan agreement. Mrs. Patterson walked me through the paperwork with careful attention to every detail. I signed the withdrawal documents, officially releasing myself from any obligation or partnership in Sherman's Kitchen. We'll contact the other borrowers within 24 hours to begin their requalification process, she assured me. I'd appreciate if you could keep the timing of my withdrawal confidential until after you've spoken with them. I requested. Mrs. Patterson nodded, understanding. Of course, banking confidentiality applies to all our clients equally. I left the bank feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time since this nightmare began, I had taken action based on my own interests rather than trying to accommodate everyone else's expectations. Tuesday afternoon, my phone started ringing. First Mom, then Dad, then Marcus in rapid succession. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages started desperate and quickly turned angry. The bank is saying there's a problem with the loan. Mom's voice was panicked. They need to schedule a meeting about requalification. What does that mean? Dad's message was more direct. Amaya, if you did something to sabotage this loan, you need to fix it immediately. This is our family's future you're playing with. Marcus's voicemail was pure rage. You vindictive witch. You ruined everything just because you didn't get to be in charge. I hope you're happy destroying the family business out of spite. I saved every message but didn't respond to any of them. They had made their choice when they decided to cut ties with me. Now they could live with the consequences of that decision. The requalification meeting at the bank lasted exactly 30 minutes. Mrs. Patterson later told me, maintaining professional discretion, that Marcus's credit score was 580, well below the minimum requirement for any business loan. David and Sharon's combined income without my contribution fell short of the debt-to-income ratio needed for a $180,000 approval by almost 40%. The loan was officially denied the following Thursday. Within hours, my phone was buzzing constantly with increasingly frantic messages from family members. Mom showed up at my office building, waiting in the lobby until security asked her to leave. Please, Amaya, just talk to us, she pleaded when I finally agreed to speak with her briefly. We can work this out. Marcus was wrong to say those things about you threatening to sabotage everything. We know you would never do that. But you believed him. I replied simply. When it came down to choosing between his word and your knowledge of who I am after 28 years, you chose him. That tells me everything I need to know about where I stand in this family. Dad cornered me outside my apartment the next evening, his usual authority replaced with desperate pleading. We made a mistake, honey. We should have valued your input more. Marcus got carried away with his excitement, and we got caught up in it too. But we can fix this. We can restructure everything to give you the partnership role you deserve. The partnership I deserve? I looked at him incredulously. Dad, I was never supposed to be a partner at all. I read the messages. I was just the financial backing you needed until you could figure out how to cut me out cleanly. The only difference now is that your plan failed. Marcus tried a different approach, sending long text messages explaining how he had learned from his mistakes and wanted to rebuild our sibling relationship. These messages always ended with subtle pressure about the restaurant. I know we can make this work if we all commit to the family vision again. I blocked his number after the 5th message. The truth about what had really happened began spreading through our extended family. Grandmother Sherman called me personally after hearing about the loan situation from Dad. "Sweetheart, I need you to tell me exactly what happened," she said in her no-nonsense way. "Your father's version doesn't make sense." I gave her the complete story, including the messages I had seen about planning my eventual removal. Grandmother was quiet for a long moment before responding. "That boy has been enabled his whole life, and now your parents are paying the price for it. You did the right thing protecting yourself, Amaya. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." My cousin Jessica called the next day. "I wish I had your backbone," she admitted. "Marcus borrowed $3,000 from me 2 years ago to invest in cryptocurrency. Obviously never paid it back, and when I brought it up at Christmas, Uncle David told me I was being petty about family helping family." The pattern became clear as more relatives shared their experiences. Marcus had been borrowing promising and disappointing people for years, while my parents made excuses and smoothed over his failures. I had just been the biggest mark in his longest con. The community impact was immediate and harsh. Word travels fast in restaurant circles, especially when a highly anticipated opening gets canceled suddenly. Food bloggers who had planned to review Sherman's kitchen posted about the last-minute closure due to internal family disputes. The local business community, where Dad had been networking for months, heard whispers about poor planning and financial mismanagement. Mom tried one final appeal 3 weeks after the loan denial. She came to my apartment with photo albums, pictures of family vacations and holidays, memories of happier times. "We're still family, Amaya," she said, tears in her eyes. "This restaurant thing was just business. It doesn't have to destroy our relationships." "Mom," I said gently, "the restaurant wasn't just business. It was a test of whether you saw me as an equal member of this family or as a resource to be used when convenient and discarded when inconvenient." The test results were very clear. In the months that followed, I began the slow process of rebuilding my sense of self-worth. Therapy helped me understand that what I had experienced was financial abuse disguised as family loyalty. Dr. Martinez helped me recognize patterns of manipulation that had been present throughout my childhood, subtle ways I had been conditioned to prioritize everyone else's needs over my own. Healthy families don't operate on the assumption that one person exists to serve everyone else, she explained during one of our sessions. Your value as a family member should never be dependent on your usefulness to other family members. I started building new friendships with people who valued my opinions and respected my boundaries. My colleague Sarah became a close friend after she noticed I'd been withdrawn at work. "You've seemed different lately," she said over coffee one afternoon. "Lighter somehow, but also sadder." I told her about the family situation, and her response was immediate and supportive. "Good for you for standing up for yourself." That took real courage. Having my decisions validated by someone outside the situation helped me trust my own judgment again. My small consulting business, something I had been considering for years, finally became reality. Without the financial obligation of the restaurant loan hanging over me, I had the freedom to take calculated risks with my career. The business grew steadily as I helped other small companies develop marketing strategies. The work was fulfilling in a way my corporate job had never been. 6 months after the loan denial, I received an invitation to Marcus's wedding. The audacity was breathtaking, but it also marked a kind of closure for me. I sent a polite decline with a generic congratulatory card treating him exactly like the distant acquaintance he had chosen to make himself. As I reflected on everything that had happened, I realized that "understood" had been the most powerful word I had ever spoken. It wasn't just accepting their rejection, It was accepting my own worth. I understood that love shouldn't require self-sacrifice, that family shouldn't be based on utility, and that sometimes the healthiest choice is walking away. The restaurant space they had planned to lease became a successful coffee shop run by a young couple who treated each other as equal partners. I sometimes drive by it on my way to client meetings, and seeing their genuine collaboration reminds me what healthy family businesses should look like. I learned that boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary for maintaining your sanity and self-respect. I learned that being the good child often means being the exploited child. Most importantly, I learned that my peace of mind was worth more than any family approval that came at the cost of my dignity. Today, I have relationships with people who see me as a whole person, rather than a financial resource. My life is smaller but more authentic, quieter, but more honest. When people ask if I miss my family, I tell them I miss the family I thought I had, but I don't miss the family that actually existed. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply say, understood, and walk away. So, tell me in the comments, have you ever been in a situation where your family took advantage of your kindness or financial stability? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories and support each other through these difficult experiences. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences about setting boundaries and finding your self-worth. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to put yourself first sometimes. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your value as a person isn't determined by how useful you are to others. I wish you all the courage to say understood when you need to, and the wisdom to know when walking away is really walking toward a better life.